Oh, hello and welcome. This is another one of my 60 inspirational conversations for my big birthday this year that's now happened just over a week ago. And I have the delight and pleasure to have the lovely Denise Holland with me today. I do know Denise reasonably well. Some of the people that I've spoken to, I don't know very well, but Denise and I have been lucky enough, well, I hope she feels the same way, to do a few things together. And we are in collaboration with the amazing conference that we run in North Devon. I'm sure that will come up in this conversation. But anyway, Denise, would you like to tell people about you, who you are, what you are up to in the world?
Yeah, sure, Deb. Well, first of all, happy birthday. Great 60th.
Thank you.
And yeah, welcome to that lovely number.
It's a great time, especially for us women. Get out there.
Time. So yeah, Denise Holland. What do I do? I've been involved in this understanding of the mind for 10 years, in terms of waking up to a deeper sense of who I am. And I've been working with sports people and just generally people that have been having difficulties and trouble with their mind over the last 10 years. So I run the business, Denise Holland now. I've rebranded. It used to be Class Performance Excellence Within, but I've rebranded to Play Freely.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
Mm.
Tell me a little bit what's behind that, the play freely. That really appeals to me because I love being playful around, understanding myself, understanding who I am, rather than taking too much on myself and too much too seriously. So tell me about that, the play freely.
Yeah, so Deb, it came about. I'm writing a book, and I'm calling it Play Freely: Spiritual Truths to help support people at all levels of the game. I think that'll be the subtitle. And the book is just a couple of chapters away in terms of being finished, in terms of a manuscript. And a few years ago, I really woke up to that it's not all on us, that we actually have this capacity to play the game of life. And we can play way more freely. And in sport, there is a point which we all know where we go into this zone state, we go into this optimal functioning. And it's times in the game I remember where after the game, I didn't really remember it. It was like it was on automatic. It felt easy and effortless. And so I connected the dots and realized that's playing freely. That's playing without anything on it. That's just seeing what's possible, being curious, being fascinated about what's possible through this body and mind. And so I realized that, I see, Denise, you don't have to get into the zone. If you leave your mind alone and all the content on it, you kind of fall into a zone state. It's there all the time. And I was like, wow. And I didn't know that. And so from that moment, I thought, well, Play Freely is just such an amazing brand, because we can all do that if we understand the nature of our experience and what's behind all of this incredible life that we have.
When you were saying that, I was thinking of my little granddaughter who's 2, and she is a great example of that, and a great example as well of going in and out of that, because I see her, her and my grandson, I see she loves the soft play. She absolutely loves it. And we go there and she charges up and she loves whizzing down the slides and doing it. And then I see her have temper tantrums and get into that, move out of that free playing, if you like, and get caught in her thinking and get caught in the belief that life, what's happening, what's going on, isn't going the way she wants. She doesn't like it. She doesn't want it. And she throws a complete, a temper tantrum. And then that's gone again. And she's back into, luckily for me, she's incredibly easily distracted. And she's, quite easily, you can get her back to, look what's here, look what's available. And I guess, that's the bit I think that I used to stop myself doing that. You know, when you're talking about getting into the zone and talking, and when I'm thinking about my granddaughter, it's like, yeah, I can see that life is life, hasn't it? It's got a life of its own. It does stuff. It happens. All this stuff happens. And then I kick and scream sometimes. And at other times, I'm in that zone that is always, always, always there. So tell me more about that always being available, because I know that, I think, is a place sometimes we can get stuck. You know, that's just there. We can drop into it. Would you speak more about that?
Yeah. What can I say about that? It's something that I'm really exploring at the moment, because I'm just about to have my knee replacement surgery on Friday.
Oh,
I get to, and everything's, all the synchronicities have happened, and I get to write one of my last chapters of the book, and I thought, oh well, I will include this in the book, and it will be written in real time. It will be written, what is it that I go through in this lead up? Where does my mind go in this lead up, and how often, and the quality of the safety net that catches me every single time. Like I am scared, of course I am. You know, I don't think anybody loves to go through pain, but I know that my knee is going to be really good afterwards. And I just feel that there's this sense of being held, and when the transient nature of all of the content of my thinking, when that changes, I just fall into this really beautiful space of love and peace and joy. And it seems to be what there's always there. It's a constant. It seems to be the nature of life, the essence of life, my spiritual nature, because I always go there. Like I always fall there. I always dissolve out of all of this mental activity into there. And it's never not there. Like it's pure presence. It's when I'm just in my being, my beingness, there is, I mean, Sydney Banks, who gave us this understanding all those years ago, 50 something years ago, he said, he talked about the isness. When I first heard that, I was like, oh yeah, we're just here. There's no proving, there's no approval. We don't have to be right. We don't have to be first. All of that stuff of the conceptual mind. We're just here. How amazing is that? How many human beings had to go before us, Deb, for you and I to be sitting here having this conversation? How incredible is that? 2 cells create human life, human consciousness. Every time we eat our food, I always think this is really interesting. Like, at what point does food turn to consciousness?
I never even thought of that.
Because we, without food, we wouldn't be here. It's fueling our body. And that's one of the mysteries. That's part of the magic, isn't it, of this intelligence behind life, and what we are when we fall out of our personal mind. And that's not to give the personal mind a bad rap, because it's beautiful. It's, you know, we're both human and divine. And that's what I mean about the game of life and playing freely. Yes, I'll get caught up, and then I'll be still. And for me, I just love it, with this, going into this operation, knowing that the quality of my thinking is somehow creating a higher frequency, a higher vibration, an expanded level of energy that is helping to manifest a really beautiful outcome. And for me, just knowing the truth of that that we are creative machines. We are a creative process. We think we're an entity, but behind that, there's this creation, there's this creative process that's going on the whole time. And when we really look at that, wow, it's just, I'm just in awe of it. And when I go there with that, I don't know, it just saves me. Again and again, it saves me. That's the impact of my awakening to my spiritual nature, is that it gives me security.
Mm.
It gives me the power, if you like, to create a reality which is really helpful. It's really helpful to me, and it's really helpful to what I can create in the world.
I just love that. Yeah. It's that beautiful, beautiful starting point, isn't it? That every one of us has got. And then we also have the capability to lose sight of that. And then the capability to see it again. And that I love I love the play between those two things. And what I'm hearing in your book, and you know what you share in this, is it is all about, like, the game is all about those two things. They're sort of not being human and being a spiritual being, being divine. They're not two separate things. And a little bit like when you said, where does food become consciousness? Where did it stop being conscious? It's like there's not, is there? It's not. And it's like, where do we stop being human and start being spiritual? Where do we stop being spiritual and start being human? We don't. The two things are one and the same. And yet what I'm really seeing, what's kind of quite new and fresh for me at the moment, is this whole concept of yes and, yes and, yes and. Because it was always like, my head always tries to make, okay, so if you're human, and you know, where, so this has got to be there, and this is over here, or whatever. And it's like, no, yes and, you're human and spiritual, 100% both, 100% of the time. And the game is the play between the two. And it absolutely, when you said that every time you remember that, it saves you, that too has been hugely my experience. It's like, and no matter what, there was something that just occurred to me at some point, a good few years back now. It was a difficult time in my life, and it just sort of occurred to me to ask the question, and ask in, not ask my head, if you like, not ask my intellectual mind, but just ask and allow, just wait and see what arose, but just ask the question, am I okay even here? And just wait and see what came. And it's something that has stayed with me since then. And you know, it's not that I do it in every second or every day, but if there is something difficult, if I just get still and just ask the question, am I okay even here? It feels like it allows me to touch that space that you're talking about. When I inquire in that way, it takes me, it's like, yeah, that thing, that zone, that whatever it is that you're talking about, that deeper spiritual part of us, it's almost like I'm checking in. It's like, is the chair that I'm sitting on still there? Checking in on it. It's always there when I check.
Yeah.
It's never ever not been.
Yeah. That's beautiful. One of the chapters, I can't remember which chapter it is, but an extension of what I'm seeing around play freely is, and this is a sporting analogy, is the difference. Like, so what difference does it make, Denise, if somebody is awake to the spiritual nature of life? And the way I describe it is that it's a bit like it's like a fork in the road, and on one side you have an athlete, say, who has their goal, who wants to achieve something, and it says going to a particular championship. And they're not awake to their amazingness, this beautiful creative process that we're talking about here, Deb, this safety net. So they're trying to achieve, and they're going about their business, they're working hard, they're persevering, they're being determined, and they're striving, and they're putting in all of their hours, but it's from a place of, I'll be better when I get that medal. I'll be better when I get that improved time. And there is a certain lack that they're playing from, and they're coming from a space inside of them, which in their mind isn't enough until they get that medal. And for me, that's been the biggest change, because when I realized, oh, on the other side, you can still have the same championship, you can still have the same goals, you can still go for it, but you're playing from a place of security, and that you're already enough, and that you're already okay as human life. And when we do that, yes, we put in the hours, of course, we need the skills, but we are playing with curiosity and fascination, and we start to thrive instead of strive. We start to be open to what's possible. The title of our conference that's coming up, which we'll talk about in a minute, and we in the end, we bust through the targets. So we're not looking at reaching them, which is what reaching it over here. When we play from a place of full joy, full out, playing freely, explore alike, we tend to go beyond anything that we thought was possible for us. And it's an absolute game changer. And in sport, it's not being covered. It's being talk about the physical, the technical, the tactical. We talk about the mental in terms of cognitive conscious function, and all sorts of tools and techniques to change the way we think in order to be in our calm state. But that's not it. That's not the best we've got. We have this new paradigm which goes beyond our mental activity to access something within us as human life, which allows us to be the best that we can be from a place of security, not from a place of needing to prove ourselves or our personal wants.
I love that. I love that. And you've literally just totally nailed something there in that sharing. I think there was some really real gold in that. And I can remember watching my son's now just turned 26, when he was only young. He would have been about 3. He was quite young, and he wanted to learn to ride his bike. He'd been riding a bike with stabilizers, and he wanted his stabilizers off. And it was a day I was busy, and he came and he said, oh, Mom, will you take my stabilizers off? And I was like, no, I haven't got time, because I haven't got time to hold the bike. I'm working. I can't, I'll do it at the weekend. We'll do it this. And he's like, I want to do it today. I want to do it today. And I thought, do you know what? I'll take his stabilizers off and let him, he'll fall over a few times. He'll just forget it. He'll get over himself, and that'll be it. And then, I'll help him another time. So I took them off, and then I watched him. And over the next few hours, he took that bike out in the garden, and he fell off countless times, but there was just that zone state that you're talking about, that there was nothing riding on it, but he was giving it his all. He was in it. He was attentive. He was there. He was present, and he's 3 years old, but and at the end of that afternoon, he could ride his bike. He could just ride it. And I didn't hold that saddle for his bike once. I didn't encourage it. I was busy. I was watching. I used to do sewing, and my sewing room looked out onto the garden, and I watched him in awe a few times, actually, at what he was doing. And when you were saying that was exactly where he was, because there was nothing, he just wanted to do this for the joy of what was possible, of what he believed he could do in that moment. And You know, he was 3 years old, so he didn't have any idea of not being good enough or it not being possible or any of that kind of stuff on it. Yeah, and when you were talking then, I just thought that's what happened through him. And then we get to be adults in all sorts of areas of our lives, and it's like we put all of this stuff on it, don't we? So yeah, wow. It would be really great to mention the conference, I think, if we've kind of alluded to it.
Have. Oh, I love that we have rebranded the conference this year. We are stepping into, I think, our 5th year, aren't we? We're stepping into
Yes,
our
I think
year.
it's 5. Oh, yeah.
And each conference is unique and special, but I think this one, we've rebranded it Being You, Waking Up to What's Possible. And there is a real energy around the conference this year, which is, it seems to be, you know, real high energy around helping people to literally understand and wake up to how amazing they are. And I'm just, I'm really delighted to share what the impact has been. What difference does it make to my life? What difference does it make to my parenting, an area of my life which has hugely changed? What difference does it make to my business life and to my relationships, and how I show up in the world? I mean, I was listening this morning in the sauna, and I'm just listening to these young chaps just moaning and blaming, and I just, my heart went out to them because they're missing out on so much. Yet that's not on me either. So when people wake up, that's not on us. But what we are doing at the conference is providing a space and providing an environment where it's possible to hear something, to get that insight, which just makes you intrigued and curious that there could be something that you're not seeing. And it's okay. And we'll all have our blind spots, me too. But just that one little thing that you catch yourself when you're in a state of, low mood, blaming people, judging people, and you catch yourself being nasty to yourself, being unkind to yourself, being unkind to others. You catch yourself quicker. And for me, the real jewel of having a conference like that is everybody is in the same space of love. It's a really safe space for everyone. And we get to spend less living minutes in states of mind which don't serve us and which do not serve the world.
Yeah. I there is something so impactful about spending 3 days just sitting in that feeling of love, and there is definitely, this, when earlier on when you were talking and you were talking about the magic of life and how much of this, like how do I even digest my food? How do I even do that? That kind of just happens. And I see so much. There is a place that play between what we do. Like I prepare food and I put it in my mouth, and then something happens. So there's this part of being human, and then there's this part where the spiritual me takes over, and it's like it's passing the baton backwards and forwards, and I'm doing this bit, and like the creation, what we create, what happens out in the world, the bit that we play, and then the bit where this something takes over, the interplay between those two is just so, it's so magical. And what I see is what hits me about the conference every time, I think, is when we sit in that space of, when we connect with that saving thing that is within us, that magic, that beauty that is within us, when we just spend some time sitting in that, magic happens. And I don't even know, like you said, I don't even know how that happens. It happened to me, which is why I was so passionate about running this conference and, collaborating with amazing people like you and Rani and Beck and Lou, some really powerful women. because of what happened to me, because of what I watched happen to each of, you know, I've seen, and we've seen each other's journey, we've seen the difference and the changes over the time, seen that amazing, amazing impact. And yeah, it's just something beautiful happens when we sit in the space of love. And like, exactly like you were saying, it is, in one sense, that just sounds very woo woo, and what am I going to do? I'm going to come and sit there in love. What? But then the other side to that is you're having knee replacement surgery. That's going to go differently for you because of what you understand. You know, I've got 3 children, a relationship, I'm just bought a piece of land, I'm building a house. We've all got, you know, you run your sports stuff, you help young people with their performance, you work with leaders around performance in really practical, really like when the stuff hits the fan in those moments of parenting, relationships, money. Like, money was a huge thing for me for ages. We're going to be talking about that too. That's like, in those areas, having immersed ourselves in this love, this understanding, something fundamentally changes within us, and it impacts those areas that we really, really, really want to be impacted, change, and become something different. So
I love that. I think there's a lot of talk, isn't there, at the moment about raising the consciousness of the planet, and I think spiritual leaders all over the world are looking, aren't they, to do that. And I think I just feel so grateful that I get to hang out in a, if you like, expanded or higher, higher, lower, it's all conceptual there, but let's call it, for argument's sake, a higher level of consciousness, i.e. just a better mood. I get to hang out in a better mood way more of the time than I ever used to. And when I do have a low, I have a real low tolerance for it. But what I'm forgetting is, no, I used to hang out there all the time. That was my norm. And it's interesting, isn't it? It's like, oh no, this doesn't feel, and you wake up to it. But the nice thing about the understanding of our spiritual, psychological life is that I'm no longer scared by the way I feel. Like, I couldn't imagine saying that before, Deb. I couldn't imagine saying it's okay to feel. But we're not taught that in school. We're not taught that as youngsters, that it's okay. You're going to feel great and peaceful and loving, and then you're going to have a tantrum just like your grandchild. And you know what? That's okay. There's nothing wrong. Don't give it any meaning. It doesn't mean you now need to. It doesn't mean you are now. It just means you're having an influx of energy, an influx of thought. And in our family, we have this picture of a vat, a big vat. and when we have so many emotions, it's like we're throwing them all in there and they're bubbling up. And we just have to wait. We just have to just hang in there as best we can until the bubbles go and calm is restored. But if you don't know that it's okay to feel and that you don't need to be scared of your experience, that can be really frightening. And I used to get very frightened by my experience of insecurity and trying to be the best I could be. I'm a recovering high achiever, and if I'm not being the best I can be, because I had so much on it. Whereas now I want to see what's possible for me, but from a place of security, from a place of wholeness, not from a place of needing to be fixed or needing to prove myself.
Yeah, I think that is the key, isn't it? And we see that in small children. They live the full spectrum of life, but none of it means anything. And then you watch them, you know, I've got 2 grandchildren, and I'm watching them, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing, I love being human. You know, I've got nothing against being human. I think it's brilliant. I absolutely love it. But we watch as they kind of begin to see and have stuff on it, have stuff, you see it come. And like when you were talking about those young lads hanging out in the sauna, it feels like at a younger and younger and younger age at the moment, our children have got something on it. You know, we start to see, you know, what our body looks like, what our performance is like, what all of it. We just have stuff on it so early and so much. And definitely what I see, everything, the work that you and I do is taking that back off again, saying, yeah, be an adult, but be childlike, not childish, childlike around, you know. I could see one of the reasons that I love hanging out with my grandchildren is because of the things that I can do. You know, I can be really childlike with them, but equally, yeah, it's like I love being an adult and having less and less and less riding on stuff. And I know I used to have this idea that if I hadn't got something riding on it, I wouldn't do it, or I wouldn't do my best at it. And I've really seen that is just absolutely, absolutely not true. We actually, it opens like what you were describing when you talk about what you were sharing in your book, this, yeah, that thing and that whole, we'll get to, yeah, if we've got stuff riding on it, we've got this goal and we want to achieve it. And when we do it with nothing riding on it, it's like, okay, what's possible? It's not, oh, it's going to stop here. It brings in a whole, and I see that like in my relationships. Just before I got on this call, I was having a conversation with Beck, and I was talking about my relationship with Russ, who's just, oh my gosh, I love that man so much. And I've just seen, by choosing him, by having much less riding on it and just showing up as love, our relationship has just blossomed and changed so much. And he, without even meaning to or really knowing, he steps into that space that I open up for him. And it's, oh gosh, it's just so, it's so gorgeous. There's so much available in this.
It's beautiful.
It is, it is.
So people need to come to the conference.
They do.
For more of this conversation, and
Yeah.
we invite you to come to the conference and join us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I will definitely put the links to the conference underneath this video. If you're watching this somewhere for whatever reason and it hasn't got the links, feel free to reach out to Denise or reach out to me. The conference is an annual thing, so there's going to be another one coming up whenever you're watching this video. So Denise, if people want to know more about you and connect with you, I'll definitely put any information below this video, but what's the best place to connect with you and find out more about you?
Yeah, the best place is to email me on info@deniseholland.org, or to look at my website, www.deniseholland.org.
Cool. Well, I will definitely put that information below here. And obviously the best place to come and see Denise is come and meet her in person at the conference, spend some time in the room with her, hear all of these amazing things that she's doing around sports, performance, leadership, all sorts of wonderful things. So thank you, Denise. It's been a delight and a pleasure to speak to you today.
Thank you. It's been lovely. Thanks, Deb.